It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now, and I want to thank you for joining with us. I appreciate your attendance this morning. Well, I see a ton of you folks out there all the way from Haymarket, looks like Haymarket, Virginia, to San Diego, California, Rockwall, Texas, Town and Country. I'm not quite sure where Town and Country is. See Mission Viejo out there. There's a ton of you folks out all over the country. Glad to have you on board. If you have an opportunity to, join our friends over at Patriot FB. They'll become your new friends. PatriotFB.com. That's like Patriot, like Facebook. And ConstitutionClub.ning.com. Those are two websites that carry our program, and we appreciate their efforts and work towards trying to keep our republic in some semblance of restoredness or restitution. The idea of what happened over the course of the weekend, first of all, there's a couple of things that have happened over the weekend, not the least of which is that the Obama and Hagel did a swap of Taliban for a prisoner of war who's been held by the Taliban for the past 5 years. We're going to talk about it because, first and foremost, the question is, did Obama and Hagel commit misprision of treason? And the reason that we need to understand that is because they had an obligation to notify Congress 30 days in advance before doing such a thing, and they didn't. Now they're claiming that they went to the DOJ to get legal approval, but with this Department of Justice, you can't quantify or qualify anything based on what they say because they are completely, totally, and abjectly outside the law in virtually every aspect of what they rule upon. Following their legal rulings, there are no laws, unless it applies to you. To you, there's plenty of law. To the cronies and the pals and the friends and the corporatocracy out there is no law. So first and foremost, did these two commit misprision of treason, which I believe they did? And then the second topic is the Taliban got the better end of this deal. We didn't release 5, by the way. We released 5 in this instance, but we released 5 more a couple of months ago in an effort to sweeten the pot to open negotiations. That was our ante, just to talk to the Taliban, our sworn enemy. So now there are 10 Gitmo detainees running around who have been released. The argument, of course, is this really just another way for Gitmo to get emptied so that Barack Obama can hold up a sign that says, "See, I did what I promised. Your taxpayer dollars at work," type of sign. And the second issue is, I don't care what you think about the war. I don't care whether you think we should have been in Iraq or Afghanistan. The problem with this guy, Bergdahl, is that he abandoned his mates. And according to his fellow soldiers, he was a deserter himself. And he sought to help the Taliban in some kind of a misguided unicorn fantasy he had that, he could go out there and change the world single-handedly like he was on some kind of a church mission trip. He sent an email to his parents just days before he abandoned and left his countrymen. And 6 good men died trying to find him. That's a problem. Our third topic, the EPA's new war on American families, jobs, and your finances. Folks, they're going to knock or ratchet up, I guess is a better term. They're going to ratchet up the issues surrounding carbon emissions from coal plants. The goal is to, according to Barack Obama, necessarily get your electric bill to skyrocket, which serves two purposes. It keeps you struggling financially, keeps you off balance, confused, and it's scared. And, of course, the game plan is that when we're the most vulnerable, we'll be attacked by our own government in one shape, way, form, or another. Will it be physical? Not initially, but it will happen. And that's the truth. Anybody else who tells you something else is a liar. They don't know. And I can tell you that all the signs point to it. I can't give you emphatic proof. I can't show you some plan that says, you know, this is the code name for the operation. But you don't need that. You don't need that because you see all the signs all around you. They're everywhere. And those who don't acknowledge them, who refuse to see them, who refuse to pay attention to them, well, they're playing right into their hands. No one at this point who's intellectually honest, no one at this point who is willing to face truth and accept it for what it is would deny such a thing. Our fourth topic will be the faces of NSA and their new facial recognition databases and how they are and why they are working so diligently to collect facial recognition on Americans. See, the offer that I've made so long ago still stands. It's never been collected. Send me one benefit that you personally will get out of a national database containing all the information on you, and I will send you a crisp, brand new $100 Federal Reserve debt note. Your data includes all of your purchases, your health records, your emails, your phone metadata, speech-to-text records of all your phone calls, your taxes, everything about your job, your mental health, your travels, your interests, your circle of friends, the associates you know, your family, who connects you with you, in what shape and way and form, all the financial facts about you, and much more. Find me one good thing that will come from this data in government hands that will actually become a benefit to you, and you'll win $100 for losing. What did I just say? You'll win $100 for losing because you are the loser here, no matter how it goes. And the $100 will barely touch the impact and the cost to you. It won't even begin to make a dent in it. It'd be like shooting a rifle at a 10-inch thick plate of steel. It'll barely make even a scuff mark. You can call us if you'd like. We've got a telephone number that you can dial in if you want to participate in the show and give us your feedback or input. You can call 573-453-5505. It's a new phone system. We've been working to try to test it out, and you're welcome to utilize it. Again, it's 453-5505. 573-453-5505. You can call anytime you want. Just give a shout in here, and we'll try to bring you on the air. If you'd like to hear our program at your leisure, you can do so on our listen line, which is radio over phone. You can call 415-325-0725. That's 415-325-0725. And there you can listen to the program at your leisure anytime you want. So let's tap into our first discussion this morning, because Hagel came out yesterday and he made a confession. And he made a confession on national news. And why he isn't now in handcuffs and awaiting arraignment, I'm not sure. He came out and he said on Sunday that he's aware of the law that requires the executive branch to consult with Congress 30 days, at least a minimum of 30 days, before agreeing to any prisoner swap. Here's what he said. It's his own words. This is a quote. As to notification of Congress, yes, there is a 30-day notification. I notified the appropriate committee leadership, different committee leadership, yesterday. That's part of the responsibility I have as the Secretary of Defense. Meaning that he noted and reported to them on Saturday. Hagel said the situation was urgent. Quote, this was essentially, in our opinion, to save the life of Sergeant Bergdahl. As I said before, we had information that his health could be deteriorating rapidly. There was a question about his safety. We found an opportunity. We took that opportunity. I'll stand by that decision. I signed off on the decision. The president made the ultimate decision. We did spend some time looking at this. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard the confession of a man who is guilty of misprision of treason. In criminal law, this is a term that is used to cover a number of different aspects or a number of different terms. But the real goal of it is that U.S. Code states that whoever owing allegiance to the United States and having knowledge of the commission of any treason against them conceals and does not, as soon as may be, disclose and make known the same to the president or to some judge of the United States or to the governor or to some judge or justice of a particular state is guilty of misprision of treason and shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 7 years or both. Now, it is normally used when a crime has been committed and someone does not report that crime as a crime before it occurs. In other words, you know that someone is about to commit a crime and they're going to go rob a bank. You know they have the plan. You know who they are. You know what date and time it's going to occur, but you refuse to pick up the telephone and make a call and let the authorities know that that person or group is about to commit a felony. It's called a misprision of felony. And it is a felony in and of itself. Although it's classified as a misdemeanor, it can become a jailable offense, obviously. In criminal law, it's used to signify what they classify as a considerable misdemeanor. So it's somewhere between a misdemeanor and a felony. And it is generally used to denote whether or not someone has committed a contempt against their own sovereign nation or their own government, when we're talking about misprision of treason now, and or the courts. But it's a form of seditiousness and disloyalty and disloyal conduct to the nation. Maladministration of high public office is one of the terms, including, by the way, the misuse and malfeasance related to public funds, which means that basically everybody in Congress is guilty. To neglect or to make light account of a crime, failure in the duty of a citizen, to endeavor to prevent the commission of a crime, having knowledge of its commission in advance and revealing it to the proper authorities. It is negligence, malfeasance, breach of duty, omission. Now, I ask you to go back and listen again to Mr. Hagel's statement. As to notification of Congress, yes, there is a 30-day notification. So he admits that, yes, there is a notification that's required. 2, I notified the appropriate committee leadership, different committee leadership, yesterday. That means Saturday, because he made the statement on Sunday, which means that he didn't give them 30 days notification because the swap had already occurred. Bergdahl had already been released, and the Taliban people from Gitmo had already been cut loose. He goes on to say, that's part of the responsibility I have as the Secretary of Defense. In other words, he's admitting that it's his responsibility to notify Congress. He's also admitting, of course, that he's been malfeasant in that responsibility, and he has betrayed his fiduciary responsibility to the state and to you. Then he goes on to say, and here's where it gets interesting. This is where the full confession comes and closes the circle. And it's where he also implicates his boss. This was essentially, here's where it gets interesting, in our opinion, to save the life of Sergeant Bergdahl. Now, recognize that the court does not agree or allow an individual to have an opinion that says, well, in my opinion, it was more appropriate for me to to rob the bank than it was to allow my children to starve. You're still going to go to jail, I promise you. Try that defense and see what happens. Secondarily, your opinion, and if you were to go to a judge and say, but Your Honor, I spoke to the police department, and they said it was not illegal to carry a gun. And therefore, I walked into the bank with a gun and I took the money. See if that keeps you out of jail. You see, you cannot state that you sought, and quite honestly, if you walked into a courtroom and you said to the judge, but I went to the chief of police and I asked him, is it illegal to rob a bank? And he said, no, it's not. You can rob a bank. If you tried to use that as your excuse, you would find yourself in prison. Even if the police department was wrong, as they would be. You see, just because someone gives you a legal opinion who's in the legal industry does not make it appropriate for you to violate the law. You can't say, well, I asked my attorney if it was legal to rob a bank, and he said, no, so I robbed the bank. Now you can't hold me guilty and you can't hold me responsible for robbing that bank because I asked my attorney. What they're saying is, we sought the opinion of the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice gave us the go-ahead to avoid the 30-day notification to Congress. Department of Justice doesn't have the right to circumvent the law based on their opinion, their desires, their agenda. The law is the law. They are not the makers nor the arbiters of that. There are judiciaries, and there is a judicial aspect to this nation. Frankly, they would have a better argument by saying, we got an opinion from one of the Supreme Court judges. And even that I wouldn't buy. But at least it would have more credibility than telling me that Eric Holder gave you his opinion. As to notification of Congress, yes, there is a 30-day notification. I notified the appropriate committee leadership yesterday. That means you violated the law. That's part of the responsibility I have as a Secretary of Defense. Therefore, you just gave us and waived your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, Mr. Hagel. Secondarily, he goes on to say, this was essentially, in our opinion, based upon the opinion we got from the DOJ, to save the life of Sergeant Bergdahl. There's no authority in the law that says, based on an exigent circumstance, you can circumvent the law. As I said before, he goes on to say, we had information that his health could be deteriorating rapidly. Well, it doesn't really make any difference. There's a woman who's been held in the Sudan, who I understand was promised to be released and is now they've changed their mind, whose two American children, American-born children, are sitting in a prison with her, and she's kept chained to a bed, one of which she just had the other day, and she had to have the child born while chained to the floor. That child's health is deteriorating. In fact, in that particular prison, which is built to hold 100 people, now it's 1,200, and at least one baby per day dies. Why aren't they getting her out? I mean, we had how many Americans held in Iran for 444 days? Many of them, their health was deteriorating. We have an American in an Iranian jail right now whose health is deteriorating. We have an American in a Mexican jail whose health is deteriorating. Why aren't they doing something about that? He goes on to say, as I said before, we had information that his health could be deteriorating rapidly. There was a question about his safety. We found an opportunity. We took that opportunity. I'll stand by that decision. Remember what he just said. I'll stand by that decision. I signed off on the decision. The president made the ultimate decision. We did spend time looking at this. Well, a gang of thugs and thieves spends a lot of time plotting and planning to smuggle drugs into the country. They spend a lot of time planning a robbery of a bank or an armored car. But it doesn't make it legal. He said he would not sign off on the release of any Guantanamo detainee, quote, unless our country can be assured that we can sufficiently mitigate any risk to America's security. You have no way of knowing that. You've cut 10 people loose. 10. And we're going to talk about that in the next segment. 10, not 5, as the press is telling you. We're going to show you how they cut 10 loose. 5 just to put the ante up to be in the poker game. And then 5 more as the bet to get Bergdahl back. Bergdahl reportedly abandoned and deserted his post. And that's from his own countrymen. That's by the Army's own admission. Hagel said Bergdahl had been held for 5 years, and when asked about his reportedly deserting his post, he said, and that's 5 years of very difficult living. But he was able, by the way, to walk to the extraction helicopter, right? When asked about the prisoner exchanges and if that was a new round of negotiations and paving the way for more negotiations, Hagel said, well, it might. And we hope it will present an opening. He was then asked about, National Security Advisor Susan Rice was asked on a Sunday show on CNN State of the Union if Congress, and she did say that Congress wasn't notified about the prisoner swap as the law requires because of concerns about Bergdahl's health. She said, after almost 5 years in captivity, our concern was increasing with every passing day, but we also had indications that indeed his health was growing more fragile. He had lost a good bit of weight, and we were very concerned that time was not something we could play with, that we needed to act when we had the opportunity, and that's what we did. She said Congress has been briefed, but only the day before, or actually the day before her statement. They were briefed days after the decision was made, and the act was done. When Congress has been briefed when we had past potential to have this kind of arrangement. So it wasn't unknown to Congress, which basically by that statement tells me that they didn't even brief them on this particular issue. They briefed them on the general concept. She said that the decision to act unilaterally was made by the Defense Department in consultation with the Justice Department. Quote, and this is Susan Rice now. Of course, everything Susan Rice says we should believe, right? She was the one who told us that Benghazi was about video. And given the acute urgency of the health condition of Sergeant Bergdahl, and given the president's constitutional responsibilities, it was determined that it was necessary and appropriate not to adhere to the 30-day notification requirement. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm telling you is that your government, your president, your Secretary of Defense, and Susan Rice have admitted and confessed on live television to a misprision of treason and an act of treason against their own nation. And that is the truth. You're listening to America's Voice now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Taliban and how they got the better end of this deal. Because they got 10 traitors back, 10 of our traitors, 10 traitors to the United States, 10 enemies for one of our traitors. I don't get it. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice now.